It was clear the person for the job is Senator-Designate Pete Ricketts. Thank you, Pete.
Exactly 1 week after Pete Ricketts handed over his reins as governor, Jim Pillen appointed him to the U.S. Senate.
6 News' Brian Mastery was in Lincoln today for the announcement and spoke with Pillen on how he made his decision.
The Nebraska Democratic chair calls Ricketts being appointed to the U.S. Senate the most blatant pay-to-play scheme ever in Nebraska. Governor Pillen doesn't see it that way.
I have way too much respect for the people in Nebraska to get the best person possible and never assume anything. In our business, that's a good way to go broke.
Governor Jim Pillen said it's not in his DNA for backroom dealings, that the integrity of the appointment process was his highest priority. Pillen says he interviewed 9 Republicans for the Senate seat, including what he described as a discussion with Pete Ricketts, who supported him publicly and financially in the race to be governor. In fact, Ricketts donated more than $100,000 of his own money to the Pillen for Governor campaign. As for Senator Ben Sasse, who created the open seat, he spent 8 years serving Nebraskans. He starts his new job next month as president of the University of Florida. Pete Ricketts was Nebraska's chief executive during the same 8-year period. After 8 days out of office, he's now a senator. And based on seniority, he'll be Senator 100 out of 100.
I think there's going to be a lot of similarities from the standpoint of Senator Sasse was a very conservative vote there. Again, he focused on getting conservative judges onto the bench, but judges who understand the meaning of the Constitution. I share that same value.
Governor Pillen says Nebraskans know what they're getting with Senator Ricketts, who has committed to running for that seat in 2024 and 2026. On your side in Lincoln, Brian Mastery, 6 News.
More than 100 people applied for that open Senate seat. Among the big names who received interviews, former state Senator Brett Lindstrom, who did run for governor, Pinnacle Bank's Sid Dinsdale, and the head of the Nebraska Chamber of Commerce, Brian Sloan.